Are the Lions a real threat to win the NFC? We don't react to a lot of Pardon the Interruption videos, so nice to see the boys. I think they are. I kind of mentioned this. Sorry, guys, if y'all hear a honking, but the city is alive this morning. There's a car, like alarm going off outside of my window. I think the Lions are real. I said this about a week ago. The Lions are one of those teams where they have the pieces to make a run. They have the pieces to be one of those surprise teams where if they get hot, and by they, I mean Jared Goff. If Jared Goff gets hot, the Lions could do this. I think they have enough on the roster. Like, what do you want from a team in the playoffs to get hot? You want playmakers on offense. The Lions have, with Amon-Ra St. Brown, with Jahmyr Gibbs, with Laporta, with Jared Goff, with the whole kit and caboodle. You want a nasty defense, which the Lions have. Their defensive line is legit. And then you want a good offensive line, which the Lions have. Their offensive line is really good. They've proven they can run the ball basically at will. And they can dominate the line of scrimmage. You do all that, there's no reason you can't put together a playoff run. So the Lions certainly would not be my pick to win the NFC, but in a weak NFC, a weekend NFC, where basically every team except Philadelphia and San Francisco are the exact same, would it shock me for Detroit to go and beat? I mean, think about the playoffs. Like, would it surprise you if Detroit beat Dallas and then beat Seattle or something like that? Like you think about the NFC playoff teams. Would it shock you to see Detroit beat Dallas and then Detroit beat Seattle and then Detroit plays Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game, and then it's like anything can go in one game? So I don't see any reason why a team built like the Lions, why they can't make a run. And I'll say this about Dan Campbell. I was critical of Dan Campbell his first season because he made a lot of huge mistakes in tough situations like fourth down, 2-point conversions, kicking field goals, stuff like that. I don't know the ins and outs of the Lions front office, but to me, it seems like they hired an analytical staff. They hired some group to do those decisions because Dan Campbell has gotten way better at that. And I don't think he's reading, any books from MIT on how to figure out analytics, and he increased his analytical comprehension within a year. So I think he's got a very smart group helping him with the 2-point conversions, the punts, the field goal, stuff like that. And that's all I ask NFL teams to do. If your head coach can't do it, Mike McCarthy, go hire a team that can. There are quality assurance coaches. There are ridiculous coaches on every NFL staff. Go get an analytical department that can actually help you with those coin flip decisions in 2-point conversion, in field goal, in fourth down scenarios. The Ravens did it, and they're incredible at them. And I think the Lions did the same thing. And that's a huge bonus too. So the coaching isn't even a question mark.
All right, Wilbon. Are the Lions a legitimate threat to win the NFC?
Today? No. They might get there. They got to grow and they got to work at this. I believe in that old coach's adage, and I think it was a basketball coach who uttered this, or at least when I first heard it. First you win, then you get good. Because so much of that, people talk about confidence.
That's a good point. I mean, I kind of said that when we talked about the Jaguars this offseason. People were like, Jaguars are a threat to win the AFC. And it's like, guys, the Jaguars had, in the last 3 seasons, they went 3 wins, and then 9 wins. And they started whatever it was, like 4-8. You have to win before you can be a legit threat. Now, the Lions are winning. The Lions are winning. But I understand what Tony's saying, where it's like, how can you be a threat when you don't even have playoff success? Their biggest win so far was knocking the Packers out of the playoffs at the end of last year. And the Lions didn't make the playoffs. So I understand what he's saying, where it's like, I can't say you're a real threat until you show me some kind of sustained winning, especially in the playoffs. But the one little wrinkle I would say to that is the NFC is so down this year, where when you take away San Francisco and you take away Philadelphia, who are the obvious tops of the NFC, the rest are just not that good. So no one has success besides San Francisco and Philadelphia. And the AFC is different. You got to get through Baltimore. You got to get through Buffalo. You got to get through Miami. You got to get through Cincinnati. You got to get through Kansas City. You got to get through teams that have had legit success over the last couple of years. The NFC isn't really like that. It's not really like that at all, besides Philadelphia and San Francisco. So this is the time where a surprise team like the Lions could make a run.
It's so misplaced, the notion of confidence. Confidence comes from actually accomplishing something repeatedly. And so the Lions, they won 3 games, but they haven't done this repeatedly. But maybe by the time you've won 10 or 11 games and you get closer to the playoffs and you've beaten some people and you've persevered, you've won a close ones, then you can be a threat. They're not a threat now. San Francisco and Philly are that, and maybe Dallas are rung below.
See, Dallas is interesting. So he mentioned Dallas, and I knew he was going to because everyone does. I don't think Dallas, okay, controversial yet brave. Okay, let me temper myself before I get myself in trouble here. You know what? Whatever. We're going to say it anyways. I think Detroit's better than Dallas. I know people in the comment section are cracking their fingers, about to go crazy typing. I think right now Detroit's better than Dallas. So if Detroit's better than Dallas, because Dallas has not had that extended, that Dallas is a weird team where they're always picked to win, even though they never, ever win. I'm 34 years old. Dallas has never won in my lifetime. Like, Dallas has never been, well, and not in my entire lifetime, but since I really started watching football. So we can say in the last 20 years, since 2000, Dallas has not been even relevant since 2000. They've been projected to win like every year. It's like, oh, they win 12 games. Romo can have them doing this, whatever. Dak has them doing this. They're the 2 seed or the 3 seed or but they never actually win. But because of their pedigree of the Aikman years and the Emmitt Smith years and the Michael Irvin years, they're kind of like the Yankees, where the Yankees have not been good in a long time. The Yankees haven't been good since like 2009 or whatever it was when they got their World Series. But because they're the Yankees, people assume that pedigree just carries over. We have no reason to think that pedigree carries over with Dallas any more than Detroit. So, and I like Detroit's roster better than Dallas. So him saying Dallas at 3, if I think Detroit and Dallas are comparable, or comparable as a lot of my friends say, if I think those two teams are comparable, then I have to think Detroit's a threat.
Below them, and Detroit will run below them. But they might be. I ain't proclaiming them. I ain't crowning them that yet.
Yeah, I feel the same way you do. Are they a legitimate threat? As you sit here now after 4 games, no, because they're not as good as San Francisco and they're not as good as Philadelphia. But San Francisco and Philadelphia have been good for a long time. Detroit has been bad for a long time.
Forever.
Detroit has won 1 playoff game since 1957. That means, Mike, in your entire lifetime, they have won one playoff game. So if they were, and I think they will win the division this year, and I think they're set up actually to win that division for a few years.
Yeah.
But if they were to win 1 playoff game this year,
be a huge
they should
success.
Be the happiest team on the face of the earth.
And that's kind of what I'm saying too. He just alluded to this with them winning the division. I look at a real threat as a team that's going to be in the mix. I don't look at a real threat as like the best team, because like very rarely does the best team make it to the championship game. How many times do we see that? How many times do we see the best team not win the Super Bowl or the World Series or the NBA Finals or the March Madness or whatever? How many times do we see an upset? How many times do we see like the undefeated Patriots? They were better than the Giants. The Giants beat them. Were the Giants even the 3rd best team in the NFC that year? Probably not. If I off the top of my head, they were probably like, what, were they a wild card team? Somebody look it up. Somebody in the comments below, look it up. But it happens all the time. The Saints, the years the Saints lost to the Rams with the pass interference, like they were better than the Rams. But they lost. It is what it is. The year the Vikings lost to the Saints with Brett Favre, the Vikings probably were the better team. And then the Saints go and win the Super Bowl. The Saints were dogs in the Super Bowl to the Colts, but they won that game too. Sometimes like things just happen. So you can't just say they're not a threat because they aren't San Francisco or because they aren't Philadelphia. If a team is in I would say the Final 4 of the conference. Like if they're in that top 4 of the conference, I think they're a threat. If they're in the mix, if they're in the game, because I'll tell you this right now, Michael Wilbon, don't you bite your lip looking at me like that. If you're in the game, if the Lions are playing the Eagles in the NFC Championship game, the Eagles are much better, but the Lions are a threat because they're in the game. And in 4 quarters, anything can happen. So if they're going to win the division, like Tony said, if they're going to host a playoff game, they're a threat. They're there. They are there. You have your top 2 teams. I would say that next rung is Detroit, Dallas, right now probably Seattle. And I would say right now all those teams are threats to win the NFC.
Because it would be the first year that would give them 2 since 1957.
Yeah. They're going to bear watching. It's the first time we've said that really and meant it since Barry Sanders.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's weird to say, but I think it's the truth. Let me know in the comments below, ladies and gentlemen, are the Lions a real threat to win the NFC? Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video.